Hi everyone, I'm Greg Corsten and this is part 2 of my layered recording tutorial. In this tutorial I'll put two metahumans across from each other in a talk show-like set. First one will talk, and then the other. The way I'm going to do this is I'll record using Live Link Face, the first character, and then I'll record the second character while the first one is playing back to give me something to react to. If you want to follow along, I'm starting out with a blank Unreal project, and I've selected Starter Content. That gives us this table and these two chairs. If you've gotten to the point of wanting to do layered recordings with metahumans, you've probably already spent some time with other tutorials learning how to move things around in the set and generally get the system set up the way you want it. So I'm going to gloss over those parts a bit. But it is very important that you get all the settings right. So start out by going to your plugins. And here are some of the things that need to be turned on. Search for ARKit and make sure Apple ARKit and ARKit Face support are on. Search for Control Rig and make sure that's turned on. Now search for Live Link. Make sure Live Link Control Rig, and Live Link Curve Debug are all turned on, as well as Live Link XR. You also want to turn on Take Recorder right here, and search for Audio and turn on Audio Capture here. Finally, you'll want to get Timed Data Monitor and turn that on. And by now you'll probably have to do a restart to get all those plugins installed, so go ahead and do that. Remember to save everything first. There's also a couple of project settings you should turn on, so you can go up to Settings and go to Project Settings. And under General Settings, scroll down to Frame Rate. I find that it works best if you used a fixed frame rate, and make sure that it's a frame rate that your scene and computer can keep up with. So in this case, I'm using 30. The timecode provider should be set to none. Generate default timecode should be checked. And for this purpose, we're going to set the timecode to 60 frames per second because that's what the Live Link Face app generates. If you haven't already watched my tutorial about Live Link Face recording and timecode, you probably should. I'll put a link up at the top of the screen so that you can get there easily. That tutorial explains how to do it and why you want to. Trust me, it's a good idea. The next thing you want to do is get a few metahumans into your scene so that you can animate them. So you start up Quixel Bridge, which you can see running here. And I'm going to take this character, India, and I've already exported her into my scene. And I'm going to take the character, Bob, and export him into my scene. After you've done this, you'll have a Metahumans folder like this one that's highlighted. You can open it up and select the metahumans and drag them into your scene to set everything up. And pose them however you'd like. Once you've done that, you'll have a scene sort of like the one that's on the screen now, with the two characters sitting opposite each other. Right now it'd be a good time to go up to Window, Developer Tools, and find the Time Data Monitor, and check to make sure that your scene is rendering fast enough. You can see here that it's rendering at 30 Hertz, and it's got quite a bit of idle time, so everything is quite quick enough for this. Now we need to do a little setup of the metahumans. But before we do that, let's get Live Link running. I'll explain why in a second. So go up and open your Live Link window, and then over on your iPad, open up the Live Link Face app, and you should see it appear like you see here. I can put that out of the way now. Now I'll select my first metahuman, Bob, and I'll set his Live Link Face subject to my iPad. And that's why you wanted to get your Live Link running first, because if you hadn't, this choice wouldn't be available to you. Then I'll also go to India and I'll make sure she's set to my iPad also. And you probably want to have the LiveLink face head box checked so that you'll be able to control head motion on both of these characters. Another thing you may want to do with each metahuman is to set their LOD value. That's the level of detail. Normally this is going to be set to -1, which means it'll choose whatever LOD it thinks is appropriate. But if you want your metahumans to always look their best, you can change it to 0 if your machine is fast enough to handle it. Now you can press play and take a look at the game screen. And you should see that both of your metahumans are animating now, their heads and their mouths. And if that's true, everything is set to go. If you find your characters' faces weren't animating like they in the last scene, you may just want to restart Unreal. It seems that sometimes things in Unreal get a little stuck, and a restart usually fixes them, particularly problems with LiveLink and animation. So before you go through a lengthy session of trying to figure out what you did wrong, save your scene and restart Unreal and see if that fixes it. Here, it did. At this point, you probably noticed that when my mouth is closed, the character's mouth is still a bit open. This is because I haven't calibrated the character yet, and this accounts for the mouth movement and slightly droopy looking eyes. I've already done a tutorial on how to calibrate LiveLink face manually, and you can see that if you go to the link above. Now I'm going to go set up my scene a little better, and I'm going to do that LiveLink calibration I mentioned. I'm not going to make you watch this because it's going to be different for everybody, and I've already done tutorials on it. I'll be back in just a second. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, I've rearranged the scene a little bit with the characters opposite each other. I've also created a few cameras, and it'll be obvious what those are for later on. Now I can press play and show you the game screen. And I switch to the camera view that's a close-up of India. I think you can see her lip sync is better now, and her eyes look a little more natural. You can see that she's looking into the camera, and everything looks pretty much okay. Now, a lot of people have asked, how do you get the character to look into the camera like she is now? Well, it turns out that it's a little tricky to do that, but it's not very technical. It's just something that you have to practice. Take a look at these shots of my setup. You'll notice I have my iPad set up so that when I'm working, I'm looking just over the top of the camera at the screen behind it. And I have the characters set up so that when I look into her eyes on the monitor screen, she ends up looking straight back at me. So as long as I concentrate on her face, she'll be looking into the camera. And that seems to work reasonably well. It takes a little practice not to glance around while you're working on stuff like this. If I look down at myself on the iPad screen, you can see she just disengages from the camera. Or if I glance over at any of the Unreal stuff that's running on other parts of my screen, she does too. And you don't want to do that. That takes a little bit of practice to get around not doing that all the time. Once you've got a setup like this more or less working, you can usually adjust the character's head slightly or the direction of their eyes just by turning or sliding the iPad to one side or another. You're also probably wondering why I'm using an iPad instead of an iPhone. Having this big iPad in front of me makes it a little hard to see the screen sometimes. Well, the reason's pretty simple. The iPad has a really big battery, so it runs longer than an iPhone. And also, it never seems to overheat like iPhones do, so you never have to stop working to let your device cool off. By the way, while we're talking about it, one of the things about MOCAP that a lot of people don't realize is that it rarely looks 100% perfect live and straight out of the device. You almost always have to cheat or tweak it a little bit to get it to work. This is true even with the really expensive systems that Hollywood uses. They almost always have an artist do a little bit of cleanup work at the end. So if you try doing this and it doesn't look exactly perfect, don't think that you're doing something wrong. It's just the way things are. A lot of times you can fix the problems by moving the cameras a little bit or making small adjustments in the characters after they've been recorded. By the way, as part of the script for this little demo, I'm going to start off with a view like this of India, where she's looking into the camera, and then she'll turn to look into a different camera. If you're wondering how to do this, it's the same basic trick I was talking about before. I've lined up her eye lines so that she's looking into the camera when I look at a specific spot on my wall. As you can see, I've done pretty much the same thing with Bob here. Now, one of the things that will help you is that lately, one of the interview styles has people not looking directly into the camera all the time. So if you use that style, you don't have to worry so much about the character's eye lines. And of course, for a more distant shot like this one, you don't have to worry as much about the eye lines because they're not obvious. I'm not going to use this shot much right now, but when we get to the demo where I'm doing full body mocap, we'll use it more. Now let's get on with the recording part. As you can see on the screen right now, I've got the time data monitor open. I've switched the eval mode here to timecode, and I've done a calibrate. All this is covered in more detail on my tutorial about using timecode with the LiveLink face. Doing this will help to make sure that your data comes over nice and even without any jumps or skips. Now we have to set up Take Recorder to actually do the recording. You should find that up here under Cinematics and hit Take Recorder, and you'll get a screen like this one. You can see we have scene names and take numbers. This is how you keep track of your different recordings. If this panel at the bottom of your screen is blank, just click the gear icon in the upper right and it should appear. These are the scene settings that I use. I tell it to start at the current time code, to record the time code, to record the sources into subsequences, and to record to possessable. Now we use this green source button up here to choose what we want to record. You can see we have a choice to record from Actor or from LiveLink. This time I'm going to record from LiveLink, which takes the LiveLink data raw directly from my iPad. The nice thing about doing it this way is you've got the original data copied on your recording, and you can always edit it or change the way it's mapped to the character if you need to. The other thing I want to record is my microphone. You can come down here and say microphone audio, and then when you click on it, you get the settings. Unreal's microphone setup isn't that great right now. It doesn't have any VU meters or any way to set levels, or to select different microphone devices. So you call up your sound control panel that you see here. Whatever is your input device where it says choose your input device, that's what's going to get recorded. The other thing you're going to have to set is the audio gain. Unfortunately, since Unreal doesn't have any meters, there's no good way to set this other than doing some test recordings till you get it right. Let me show you what that looks like. I've changed my slate name in Take Recorder to Audio Check so these test recordings won't get in the way of anything else. Now I'm just going to click on the red button to start a recording. I'll get a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then I can start talking and recording. In your sequencer window, you'll end up with something that looks like this. These two tracks that you see are our audio and our recording of the LiveLink data from the iPad. But right now I'm interested in the audio, so I'm going to double click it. You can see if you look at this that the audio is a little bit quiet. And you'd notice that too if I played it back. So what you need to do is boost the gain a bit until you get this almost full scale. I've done this test a few times, and I know that with my setup I need a little extra gain of about 12. And this is what the signal looks like when I have 12, which is about right. Now we're finally ready to do a recording. I've changed my slate to Talk Show India because the first thing I'm going to record is India's part. And I'm going to move this out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. And what I'm going to do is record all of India's dialogue in one go. And I'll be inserting little pauses where I want to have Bob respond. Now, if you wanted to, you could record each snatch of dialogue as one piece and then string them all together in the editor later. But for some things, I find it easier just to do the whole thing in one go. There's one more thing I need to do here. Because I posed my characters so they'd be sitting down, and I made a level sequence to do that, I have to set it up so that that level sequence will play, or the characters won't be sitting. Now, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You could just have the characters standing when you do your recordings, and animate them later with motion capture or control rig. But for this demonstration, I made a brief sequence that has them sitting down. The other thing you could use this level sequence for is if there was anything else in the background that you wanted to move. Like you could have cameras or objects moving around based on a recording in Sequencer. And you'd be able to see them while you were doing your recording. So to add this level sequence, you simply go to the Sequencer window, press the green track button, and choose Subscenes Track. Then press the plus, and find the sequence that you want it to play, and in my case it's called Talk Show 1. Now we're all ready to record. So as you can see, we're in play mode, everything is running, timecode is ticking, all we need to do to start recording is to press the red button. I'm going to give you one warning here though. If you press this button by accident, don't press it again right away to try and stop it. I found that causes Unreal to freeze up and you may lose work. Don't try to stop the recording until the whole 3, 2, 1 countdown is over with. Hi, I'm India Allen, and today we'll be talking to Bob on the Metahuman Show. Bob's sitting across from me now, so why don't you say hello, Bob? Okay, I don't know why every metahuman thinks that that's such a hilarious joke. Maybe our sense of humor is a little broken when we're first created. Okay, Bob, whatever you say. But I think that's enough for now. Okay, now that I've laid down India's track, we can come to Take Recorder and press the review button here to see what we did. And down in Sequencer, you'll see the audio track, the live link track, and my talk show that keeps the characters posed. I'm not going to play this back right now because you just watched me record it. But if you press the play button in Sequencer, it would play the sequence that you just recorded and you could check to make sure it's right. Now we have to set things up so that we can record Bob reacting to what India says. And this gets a little bit more complicated. They say that they're going to improve this workflow in future versions of Unreal, but we'll see. Now in the documentation, they say you can just press this button here to start a new recording using this current take as a base. Unfortunately, if you do that, some of the stuff that you recorded is going to get recorded over because the takes are not being renamed very well. So you have to do that yourself. First thing we have to do is rename the live link track. So click the unlock button here, and then double click on India's live link track. And here you can click rename. And I'm just going to call this India live link. Now I'm going to jump back into Take Recorder and press this button to start a new recording using the old one as a base. And I'm going to change the name of the slate here to Talk Show Bob because we're going to be recording Bob. Now if we look back at the Sequencer window, we'll see we've got Audio Talk Show India, and we've also got the live link track from India. The last thing we have to do to see India playing back while we're recording Bob is make a small change to India's live link source, so it'll play back the one that we renamed a second ago. To do that, we first need to leave play mode, and we select India, and we set her to India live link. And then we start play again. So I've got India back on the screen now. This is because I'm going to be reacting to her as Bob, and I want to see what she's doing. This is a pretty simple script, so I really don't have to do it this way. But if you're doing something more complicated, you might want to. All I got to do now is press the big red button and start to record Bob's dialogue. Hi, I'm India Allen, and today we'll be talking to Bob on the Metahuman Show. Bob's sitting across from me now, so why don't you say hello, Bob? Hello, Bob. Okay, I don't know why every metahuman thinks that that's such a hilarious joke. Maybe our sense of humor is a little broken when we're first created. I'm not broken. Okay, Bob, whatever you say. But I think that's enough for now. So now that the recording is done, once again we press the review button in Take Recorder, and this is what your Sequencer track should look like. You can see we've got an audio track for Bob, one for India, a live link track for Bob, and another one for India. This should be the complete scene now. Our last job is going to be to close up Take Recorder and edit the sequence together with the right camera motions and camera changes to make this into an interview. Everything you just recorded will be in this cinematics folder. So you can go down into takes to the day, and if you look down through here, you should see a take, Talk Show Bob 01. Now I made a duplicate copy, which is something you might want to do just in case you mess up. You can always go back to the original. So just double click to open that, and we've got it showing up in the sequencer again. Now what we want to do is edit the camera layout. When I built this set, I put some cameras where I wanted them to be, so this is going to go very quickly. All we have to do is switch between cameras when we want to. So we'll go into this Talk Show 1 track and open it up. And then up here in Camera Cuts, I press the plus camera button, and I say I want the angle shot of India. Now if I press the little camera icon, you can see that the game view is now pointed straight at India in an angle shot. Now when India turns her head to look at Bob, I want to do a brief two-shot. So we'll just scrub ahead to find that spot where she turns her head. Right there. And we'll hit this plus button again, and we'll change to the two-shot. Now I'll scrub ahead to where she stops talking, asking Bob a question, and we'll switch to Bob's headshot. Right about here. Hit plus again, and we'll go to Bob's angle shot. Then we're going to scrub ahead a bit more to where Bob stops talking. And we'll switch back to India's close-up camera to see her reaction. When she's done rolling her eyes and complaining about Bob's terrible joke, we'll give her just a little bit more time in close-up, and I'll do a shot on the angle. And then in a moment here, she's going to stop talking again so that Bob can respond. Right there. And we'll switch to Bob's angle shot. Let Bob say his sense of humor isn't broken. And finally, we'll switch back to India. And now our edit's done. Now you've got a complete scene. At this point, you can either render it out through the render queue, through Sequencer, or you can just play it and record it off the screen with OBS, which is what I'm going to do now just to keep things simple. Hi, I'm India Allen, and today we'll be talking to Bob on the Metahuman Show. Bob's sitting across from me now, so why don't you say hello, Bob? Hello, Bob. Okay, I don't know why every metahuman thinks that that's such a hilarious joke. Maybe our sense of humor is a little broken when we're first created. I'm not broken. Okay, Bob, whatever you say. But I think that's enough for now. Okay, at this point, the only thing left to do is to do a little basic video editing, trim the clips, and do some voice changes so that India doesn't sound like me. If you had a good real-time voice changer, you could have used that while you were doing the recording and almost eliminated this step. In part 3 of this series, I'll show you a little bit of what's involved to do that in a video editing package, and how to output this through the render queue and resynchronize the audio when you're done. That's all for right now. See you in the next installment.